Hi. My plan is to read the first part of the case of the homeless pup, and I'm in my living room and we'll see how it goes. 20 minutes into his run through the woods on Tuesday morning, Evan McEwen spotted a small animal at the side of the trail ahead of him. He slowed to a stop, then moved forward as quietly as possible, squinting. What species of animal was it? A large rabbit? Coyote pup? No, it was a dog, probably a puppy, with short, grayish blonde fur. Undetermined breed, likely a mongrel, no collar. Evan called softly, "Come here, I won't hurt you." But the puppy scampered into the trees. Evan followed, slipping quietly through the brush. The Don River and its valley have cut a wide swath through the center of the metropolis of Toronto. Since the river itself is now quite narrow, the valley predominantly consists of trees, brush, and creeks, crisscrossed by numerous trails for biking, jogging, or dog walking. A fifth-year student at Ontario Veterinary College in Guelph, Evan was working at a vet clinic on Bayview Avenue for the summer. Since the clinic was about 10 miles west of the point at which Bayview curved to enter the Don Valley, he had decided to run the trails early in the morning before work. At 6:40 on this particular August morning, the weather was perfect, warm but not too warm, sunny but with some cloud cover, and low humidity, which meant that when you did sweat, it would evaporate. Evan stayed on the dog's trail for about 5 minutes before losing it. Then he wandered about, hoping to spot the small animal. 15 minutes later, as he was beginning to wonder if this was a good use of his time, he saw movement about 30 feet off to his left. After another 10 minutes, he spotted the pup in a small clearing on the edge of a ravine with a narrow creek running down the middle. In the distance was a high cliff with houses crouching along the top. Most likely estates, he thought. Anything that backed onto parkland was expensive. The cliff was so steep it wasn't likely climbed very often, but a few of the houses had zigzag stairways leading down. A wire fence in the distance separated the wooded area from the bottom of the cliff, which meant the dog might be trapped in this area trying to get home, if home was up on the cliff. Inch by inch, Evan eased closer. When he thought the puppy should be just able to see him, he sat on the ground and remained still. Every so often, he yawned. After a couple of minutes, he felt in his pockets and found a crumpled potato chip bag with a few chips left in it. He made a show of opening the bag and dropping a few of the chips on the ground. The pup watched him closely but didn't move. It occurred to Evan that the dog might not be alone. There could be a mother dog around, or maybe another pup. Without moving, he began to scan the area, looking for signs of other dogs peering out from behind the trees and brush. But his eyes were caught almost immediately by something on the ground just a few feet from the dog. He squinted in disbelief. Was that really a skull? Had the dog's mother died and the puppy stayed with the body? Or had the dog been walking with its owner and the owner had died? Nah, it would take weeks, if not months, for the bones to be picked so clean. Evan cautiously pulled his cell phone from his pocket and took a picture of the dog, then one with the dog and the skull. Finally, he took a picture of the skull alone. He hit edit and cropped around it. In his studies, he'd examined a lot of different animal skulls, and he was positive this one was human. After a moment's debate, he punched 911 and gave the person who responded the bare details of what he'd found. When questioned, he texted his location and attached the picture of the skull. He was told to stay where he was and not move an inch until the police arrived. The pup sat watching him, but although Evan tried everything he knew to coax it to come closer, it didn't budge until the police arrived. Then it scampered off through the trees. The first responders took Evan through his story about how he'd found the dog and then the skull. After that, they let him phone the clinic to inform them he'd be late for work. Then they bundled him out to a small clearing closer to the main trail, where he and one of the officers waited in silence for the forensics identification team, the homicide detectives, and the coroner to arrive and determine what exactly Evan had found. Detective Inspector Paul Manzuk and Detective Constable Jacqueline Ryan were doing paperwork in Mansuk's office at police headquarters when Superintendent Selden's call came in for Mansuk. A tall man, easily 6'5", with an imposing build. In his wife's words, he needed to lose 30 or 40 pounds. Mansuk intimidated most people at first sight, a reality he found useful most of the time. After listening to his boss, Mansuk looked over at the young woman who had recently become his partner on the homicide squad. She was 5'9", tall for a woman perhaps, but nowhere near able to look him in the eye. Slim but wiry, with cinnamon-colored skin, very short black curly hair, and a no-nonsense style. Young enough to be his daughter, she was from a culture that was very different from his own, which made communications troublesome at the best of times. Not only that, but she'd had a chip on her shoulder since the day they met, and it seemed to him that she went out of her way to find things to disagree with him on. But he already couldn't imagine having anyone else as his partner. Selden wants us to check in on a possible homicide. It's a little different. He gave her the details. Ryan's expressive face offered him a disgusted look. A skull in the woods? Ew. She began packing up. Sure, why not? It's a nice day and I can't see I mind getting out of here. Ryan pulled a navy suit jacket on over her red and white pinstripe t-shirt before picking up the black case that held her laptop, tablet, and cell phone, as well as other odds and ends she sometimes needed at crime scenes. Mansuk put on a tweed sports jacket and grabbed the straw hat he wore when he was going to be outside for more than a few minutes. As much as he hated the hat, it was a necessary evil to protect the balding spot on the top of his head from the sun. He picked up his own case. My turn to drive, Ryan said as she led the way out of the office. Mansuk rolled his eyes but didn't argue. The decision to take turns had been resolved one of their issues. Ryan kept truck. And that's what I'm going to read. If you want to know what happens, you're going to have to get the book.